I am the first man whom God has called a friend. For the last 175 years, I have walked in total faith, obeying Adonai's every command without hesitation, even when asked to sacrifice my own son. Just like you, I've faced countless challenges and tests that molded me into the person I am today. Stay tuned for the epic story of how I became God's first friend and the father of your faith. Interestingly enough, my journey started in a place far from God. The majority of my family worshipped idols, including my father Terach. He lived 70 years and raised me and my two siblings, Nachor and Haran, and my nephew Lot. But our family's lineage was a source of pain and despair because of my father's actions. And one day, tragedy struck early in our lives. Haran, my dear brother, died before our father Terach in the land where he was born, in Ur of the Kasdim. The pain of losing Haran was a heavy burden on all of us, especially on our father, who had to endure the heartbreak of outliving his son. But in the midst of our grief, life had to move forward. Nachor and I took wives for ourselves. My wife was called Sarai. She was a beautiful soul with a gentle spirit, but with her beauty came a deep sorrow. Sarai was barren. She had no child, nor could she have them. Thus, it brought a shadow over our joy, a constant reminder of the future that seemed uncertain, with the weight of our past hanging heavy. But my father believed in the promise of a new dawn. So my father made a grand decision. He gathered us, me, Haran's son Lot, and Sarai, my beloved wife, and we left Ur of the Kasdim. Our destination was the distant land of Canaan. The journey was long and arduous, filled with the promise of new beginnings and the pain of leaving our home behind. As we traveled, the memories of what we left behind mingled with the hope for what lay ahead. Upon reaching Haran, we decided to stay. Thus, Haran became a place of rest and refuge, a place where we tried to heal from our losses and build a new life. Recently, after we moved, another tragedy struck. My father, Terach, lived 205 years, a long life filled with lots of pain. He passed away in Haran. As I stood by his side in his final moments, I felt the weight of our journey, the dreams left unfulfilled, and the hopes still lingering in our hearts. His death marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for me and my family, a chapter that would lead us to Canaan and beyond, guided by the promises and faith that sustained us through all our trials. But even though I loved my father, one day I felt led in my heart that there could only be one God, and I felt led to burn down my father's idol shop. So that's exactly what I did. I burned it all, every last idol. After I had done that, Adonai spoke to me saying, "Get yourself out of your country, away from your kinsmen, and away from your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you." His words echoed within me, stirring a profound sense of purpose. Adonai promised, "I will make of you a great nation, I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you are to be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse anyone who curses you, and by you all the families of the earth will be blessed." With pure faith, I obeyed. I was 75 years old when I left Haran, accompanied by my nephew Lot, my beloved wife Sarai, and all our possessions. The journey to the land of Canaan was daunting, each step filled with the weight of the unknown and the promise of divine guidance. Upon entering Canaan, I found myself in the place called Shechem, near the oak of Moreh, surrounded by the Canaani. It was there that Adonai appeared to me once more, reaffirming his promise, "To your descendants, I will give this land." Overwhelmed with gratitude and reverence, I built an altar to Adonai, marking the sacred encounter. From Shechem, we traveled to the hills east of Bethel. I pitched my tent between Bethel and I, built another altar, and called upon the name of Adonai, seeking his presence and guidance in every breath. But the land soon faced a severe famine, forcing us to seek refuge in Egypt. As we approached Egypt, fear gnawed at my heart. I turned to Sarai and said, "Here now, I know that you are a good-looking woman, so that when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and kill me, but keep you alive. Please say that you are my sister, so that it will go well with me for your sake, and so that I will stay alive because of you. You have to understand that Sarai was the most beautiful woman in the world, even in her old age, and as I suspected, my fears were not unfounded. Upon our arrival, the Egyptians were struck by Sarai's beauty. Pharaoh's princes noticed her and brought her to Pharaoh's house, treating me well for her sake. They bestowed upon me sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves, and camels, but my heart was heavy with guilt. Then Adonai intervened. Great plagues befell Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai. Pharaoh, realizing the truth, called me in anguish and said, "What is this that you have done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her to be my own wife? Now therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go away." With relief and gratitude, we left Egypt, Sarai by my side, and everything we had intact. The journey had tested our faith and our bond, but Adonai's promises remained steadfast, guiding us through each trial. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with Adonai's blessing, we continued, holding on to the hope and promise of a brighter future. As we were leaving Egypt, I was filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude, accompanied by my beloved wife Sarai, my nephew Lot, and everything we had. The memories of Egypt lingered in my mind, but our journey now took us into the Negev. There, my wealth grew immensely, blessed with an abundance of cattle, silver, and gold. Despite the hardships we had faced, Adonai's favor was evident in every aspect of our lives. As we continued our travels from the Negev, my heart yearned to return to a place of spiritual significance. I made my way back to Beit El, to the place where my tent had been at the beginning, between Beit El and Ai, where I had first built an altar. There, with a heart full of gratitude and reverence, I called on the name of Adonai once more, seeking his guidance and blessing. Lot, who had been faithfully traveling with me, also had considerable flocks, herds, and tents. Our blessings, however, brought new challenges. The land could not support both of us living together, as our possessions were too great. Tensions began to rise between our herdsmen, and the strife threatened to tear apart the unity of our family. Distressed by the quarreling and eager to maintain peace, I approached Lot with a heavy heart. "Please, let's not have quarreling between me and you, or between my herdsmen and yours, since we're kinsmen," I pleaded. "Isn't the whole land there in front of you? Please separate yourself from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left." Lot looked up, his eyes drawn to the well-watered plain of the Yarden, lush and fertile like the garden of Adonai, reminiscent of the land of Egypt in the direction of Zoar. With a mixture of excitement and determination, Lot chose the entire plain of the Yarden for himself and traveled eastward. Thus we separated ourselves from each other. I watched him go with a mix of sadness and hope, knowing that our paths had diverged. I remained in the land of Canaan, while Lot set up his tent near Sodom. My heart grew heavy with concern, knowing that the men of Sodom were evil, committing great sins against Adonai, but I knew deep down that Adonai would take care of him. After Lot had moved away, Adonai spoke to me, his words filling me with awe and wonder. "Look all around you from where you are, to the north, the south, the east, and the west. All the land you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as numerous as the specks of dust on the earth, so that if a person can count the specks of dust on the earth, then your descendants can be counted. Get up and walk through the length and breadth of the land, because I will give it to you." Stunned at what I had heard, with a heart brimming with gratitude, I moved my tent and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which are in Hebron. There, I built an altar to Adonai, my spirit lifted by his promises. Each stone I placed on the altar was a testament to his unwavering faithfulness. And in that sacred space, I called upon his name, confident in the blessings and future he had laid before me. "I'm due time, Amraphel the king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim, made war together against Bera king of Sodom. Birsha king of Amorah, Shinav king of Admah, Shemever king of Tzvoyim, and the king of Bela, which is the same as Zoar. All the latter kings joined forces in the Siddim Valley where the Dead Sea is. They had served Kedorlaomer for 12 years, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtrot Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Aimim in Shaveh Kiriatayim, and the Hori at Seir, their mountain, all the way to El Paran by the desert. Next they turned back, came to Ein Mishpat, which is the same as Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Amaleki, and also the Amori, who lived in Hatzatzon Tamar. Then the kings of Sodom, Amorah, Admah, Tzvoyim, and Bela, that is Zoar, came out and arrayed themselves for battle in the Siddim Valley against Kedorlaomer king of Elam, Tidal king of Goyim, Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. The tension in the Siddim Valley was palpable, the air thick with the anticipation of battle. The valley was full of clay pits, and as the battle raged on, the kings of Sodom and Amorah, overcome with fear, fled. Some fell into the pits, while others escaped to the hills. The victors, emboldened by their triumph, took all the possessions of Sodom and Amorah, seizing their food supply before leaving. My heart sank as I learned that Lot, my dear brother's son, had been taken captive along with his possessions, for he had been living in Sodom. In the midst of this chaos, a lone escapee arrived and told me, Avram the Hebrew, the dreadful news as I was residing by the oaks of Mamre the Emery alongside my allies, Eshcol and Aner. Anger and determination surged within me as I gathered my trained men, 318 of them born in my household, and set off in pursuit of the captors. The journey was grueling, but my resolve never wavered. We traveled as far as Dan, and under the cover of night, we divided our forces and launched a surprise attack. My heart pounded with adrenaline as we pursued them all the way to Hova, north of Damasek. The battle was fierce, but our efforts were rewarded. We recovered all the goods and rescued Lot, along with his possessions, the women, and other captives. Relief washed over me as we returned victorious. Upon our return home from defeating Kedorlaomer and the allied kings, the king of Sodom came out to meet us in the Shaveh Valley, also known as the King's Valley. At that moment, Malki-Tzedek, king of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. He was the Cohen of El Elyon, and his presence brought a sense of divine blessing. He blessed me with these words, "Blessed be Avram by El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be El Elyon, who handed your enemies over to you." With a heart full of gratitude, I gave him 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom then approached me and said, "Give me the people, and keep the goods for yourself." But my faith and integrity held firm. I answered the king of Sodom, "I have raised my hand in an oath to Adonai, El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a thread or a sandal thong of anything that is yours, so that you won't be able to say, 'I made Avram rich.' I will take only what my troops have eaten, and the share of the spoil belonging to the men who came with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share." As I spoke, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that my actions were guided by a higher purpose, and that Adonai's promises were always faithful. Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to me in a vision. His presence enveloped me, bringing both awe and comfort. "Don't be afraid, Avram. I am your protector. Your reward will be very great." Yet despite these reassuring words, my heart was heavy with a deep-seated longing. I replied, "Adonai, God, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless, and Eliezer from Damasek inherits my possessions? You haven't given me a child, so someone born in my house will be my heir." The ache in my voice was undeniable, a cry of desperation. But the word of Adonai came to me with a firm and loving promise. "This man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body." My heart pounded as he brought me outside. the night sky a vast expanse above us. Look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at the countless stars, each one a symbol of a promise that seemed beyond my grasp. I believed in Adonai with all my heart, and he credited it to me as righteousness. Then Adonai said to me, I am Adonai, who brought you out from Ur Kasdim to give you this land as your possession. Despite my faith, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. I replied, Adonai, God, how am I to know that I will possess it? His response was both mysterious and profound. Bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. Without hesitation, I gathered these animals, knowing something significant was about to occur. I brought him all these, cut the animals in two, and placed the pieces opposite each other. But I didn't cut the birds in half. Birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but I drove them away, my heart pounding with anticipation. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell on me. Horror and great darkness enveloped me. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread as Adonai spoke to me, his voice echoing through the darkness. Know this for certain. Your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression there for 400 years. But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards they will leave with many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Emori be ripe for punishment. As the sun set fully and thick darkness fell, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, passing between the animal parts. That day, Adonai made a covenant with me, his words etching themselves into my soul. I have given this land to your descendants, from the Vadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the territory of the Keni, the Kenizi, the Kadmoni, the Hitti, the Perizi, the Rephaim, the Amori, the Canaani, the Girgashi, and the Yavusi. In that moment, the stars above seemed closer, each one a beacon of hope and a reminder of the boundless promises of Adonai. The night was filled with a profound silence, broken only by the whispers of the covenant that would shape the future of my descendants. Because my whole life, Sarai, my beloved wife, had not borne me a child, the weight of this unfulfilled longing hung heavily in our household, a constant reminder of the future we yearned for but could not grasp. But Sarai, ever resourceful and determined, had an Egyptian slave girl named Hagar. With a heavy heart and a voice tinged with both desperation and hope, Sarai said to me, Hear now, Adonai has kept me from having children, so go in and sleep with my slave girl. Maybe I'll be able to have children through her. The pain in her eyes cut through me, and though it pained me to do so, I listened to what Sarai said, hoping this would bring her some semblance of peace. It was after we had lived 10 long years in the land of Canaan that Sarai, with a mixture of sorrow and resolve, took Hagar and gave her to me, to be my wife. The act was laden with the weight of unspoken pain and unfulfilled dreams. I had sexual relations with Hagar, and she conceived. However, instead of bringing joy, the situation spiraled into a complex web of emotions. When Hagar became aware that she was pregnant, she looked on her mistress with contempt, a disdain that pierced Sarai deeply. Sarai, hurt and frustrated, came to me, her voice shaking with emotion. This outrage being done to me is your fault. True, I gave my slave girl to you to sleep with, but when she saw that she was pregnant, she began holding me in contempt. May Adonai decide who is right, I or you. Her words were a desperate plea for justice and understanding. I felt torn between the two women, each suffering in their own way. However, I answered Sarai, Look, she's your slave girl. Deal with her as you think fit. Sarai, in her hurt and anger, treated Hagar so harshly that she ran away, fleeing into the uncertainty of the desert. An angel of Adonai found Hagar by a spring in the desert, the spring on the road to Shur. The angel's voice was gentle yet firm. "Hagar, Sarai's slave girl, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She answered, her voice trembling, "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai." The angel of Adonai said to her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her authority." The angel's words were both a command and a promise. "I will greatly increase your descendants. There will be so many that it will be impossible to count them." The angel of Adonai continued, "Look, you are pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You are to call him Yishmael." God pays attention, because Adonai has paid attention to your misery. "He will be a wild donkey of a man, with his hand against everyone and everyone's hand against him, living his life at odds with all his kinsmen." In that moment of divine encounter, Hagar named Adonai, who had spoken with her El Roi, God of seeing, overwhelmed by the realization, "Have I really seen the one who sees me and stayed alive?" 9 months later, and when I was 86 years old, Hagar bore me a beautiful baby boy, and I called the son whom Hagar had born Yishmael. His birth was one of the greatest moments in my life, filled with both joy and the complex emotions of our intertwined lives. I felt the weight of our past and the hope of our future, each breath a testament to Adonai's enduring promise. But before we dive further into the story, I kindly ask you to show your support by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this essential message. Every action of yours helps to spread the gospel, reaching more hearts and strengthening the kingdom of God here on earth. 13 years later, I'm now 99 years old, and the weight of my years pressed heavily upon me. Then suddenly, Adonai appeared to me. His presence was overwhelming, filling me with a profound sense of awe and anticipation. He said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Walk in my presence and be pure-hearted. I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will increase your numbers greatly." The promise echoed in my heart. I fell on my face, overcome by the magnitude of his words, and God continued to speak. "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Avram, exalted father, but your name will be Abraham, father of many. Because I have made you the father of many nations, I will cause you to be very fruitful. I will make nations of you. Kings will descend from you." The gravity of his promise brought tears to my eyes. I, a man of nearly a century without children, was to be the forefather of nations. Adonai continued, "I am establishing my covenant between me and you, along with your descendants after you, generation after generation, as an everlasting covenant, to be God for you and for your descendants after you. I will give you and your descendants after you the land in which you are now foreigners, all the land of Canaan, as a permanent possession, and I will be their God." Adonai's words filled me with an overwhelming sense of responsibility and privilege. He said to me, "As for you, you are to keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, generation after generation. Here is my covenant, which you are to keep between me and you, along with your descendants after you. Every male among you is to be circumcised. You are to be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. This will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. Generation after generation, every male among you who is 8 days old is to be circumcised, including slaves born within your household, and those bought from a foreigner not descended from you. The slave born in your house and the person bought with your money must be circumcised. Thus my covenant will be in your flesh as an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who will not let himself be circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person will be cut off from his people, because he has broken my covenant." The concept of this commandment was strange to me, but I accepted it with unwavering faith. Adonai continued and said to me, "As for Sarai your wife, you are not to call her Sarai mockery. Her name is to be Sarah princess. I will bless her. Moreover, I will give you a son by her. Truly, I will bless her. She will be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. After I heard this, I fell on my face and laughed, a mixture of joy and disbelief bubbling within me. I thought to myself, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah give birth at 90? The thought seemed impossible, yet thrilling. I said to God, if only Ishmael could live in your presence. God answered, no, but Sarah your wife will bear you a son, and you are to call him Yitzchak, laughter. I will establish my covenant with him, as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. But as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I have blessed him. I will make him fruitful, and give him many descendants. He will father 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Yitzchak, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year. With that, God finished speaking with me, and went up from me. The enormity of his promises and commands left me breathless, yet filled with a profound sense of purpose. I took Ishmael, my son, all the slaves born in my house, and all who had been bought with my money, every male among the people in my household, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin that very day, just as God had said to me. I was 99 years old when I circumcised the flesh of my foreskin, and Ishmael, my son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Ishmael and I were circumcised on the same day, a solemn and sacred moment that bound us in the covenant with Adonai. All the men in my household were circumcised as well. Each cut a testament to our faith and obedience, and a step towards the fulfillment of God's grand promises. A while later, Adonai appeared to me by the oaks of Mamre, as I sat at the entrance of my tent during the oppressive heat of the day. The sun beat down relentlessly, but a sudden presence made my heart quicken. I raised my eyes and looked, and there in front of me stood 3 men. On seeing them, a surge of excitement and reverence coursed through me. I ran from the tent door to meet them, my heart pounding, and prostrated myself on the ground, feeling the dust beneath my forehead. My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please don't leave your servant, I implored, my voice trembling with earnestness. Please let me send for some water so that you can wash your feet. Then rest under the tree, and I will bring a piece of bread. Now that you have come to your servant, refresh yourselves before going on. Their agreement, very well, do what you have said, filled me with a deep sense of relief and joy. I hurried into the tent to Sarah, almost breathless with anticipation. Quickly, 3 measures of the best flour. Knead it and make cakes. My voice was urgent, reflecting the honor of our unexpected guests. I ran to the herd, my heart racing, and took a good, tender calf, giving it to the servant who hurried to prepare it. Every moment was charged with a blend of anxiety and excitement. Then I took curds, milk, and the calf which my servant had prepared, and set it all before the men. Standing by them under the tree as they ate, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment and reverence. They said to me, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" I replied back, "There, in the tent." One man said, "I will certainly return to you around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah heard him from the entrance of the tent behind him. My heart is happy to know that Adonai is faithful with every word he says. He is the God of life after all. But Sarah overheard what he had said, and because she was past the age of childbearing, Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, "I am old, and so is my Lord. Am I to have pleasure again?" Adonai heard her and said to me, "Why did Sarah laugh and ask, 'Am I really going to bear a child when I am so old?' Is anything too hard for Adonai? At the time set for it, at this season next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." When I confronted her, Sarah denied it, saying, "I didn't either laugh," because she was afraid. I said, "Not so, you did laugh." The mingling of fear and wonder in Sarah's eyes. Soon after, the men set out from here and looked over toward Sodom, and I went with them to see them on their way. Adonai said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, inasmuch as Abraham is sure to become a great and strong nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him? for I have made myself known to him, so that he will give orders to his children and to his household after him, to keep the way of Adonai, and to do what is right and just, so that Adonai may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Adonai's words filled me with a deep sense of purpose and responsibility. He said, "The outcry against Sodom and Amorah is so great, and their sin so serious, that I will now go down and see whether their deeds warrant the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but I remained standing before Adonai, my heart pounding with the gravity of the moment. I approached and said, "Will you actually sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Maybe there are 50 righteous people in the city. Will you actually sweep the place away and not forgive it for the sake of the 50 righteous who are there? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous along with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do what is just?" Adonai said, "If I find in Sodom 50 who are righteous, then I will forgive the whole place for their sake." I bargained with Adonai over and over, until finally he said, "For the sake of the 10, I won't destroy it." Then Adonai went on his way as soon as he had finished speaking to me, and I returned to my place, my heart heavy with the gravity of the encounter and the impending judgment.